As you can hear, there's someone cutting grass. This is a day we take a walk around the neighborhood. I have a blazer / cardigan to share with you made from knit fabrics. I'm excited to share, but I have to take a walk and find another block in this area where it's quiet. See you there. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and we're a couple of blocks away from my home to share with you the Tuva Cardigan from Sinclair Patterns. I've shared a version of my first Tuva Cardigan already on the channel back in December, I believe, and in the period where I was sewing my cardigan, I was maybe 2 days away from going over to my parents for the summer, and back then I just did a pattern review, quite detailed actually, and I did show you some action shots of me traveling with the cardigan. It was quite a fun video. If you haven't seen it, I will link it down below. So in this video, I'm not going to focus that much on technical aspects like fabrics and sizing, because that is content I have already developed here for this pattern. The Tuva Cardigan has these curved sort of seam lines here on the front with a contrast trim. The contrast trim there isn't really optional. It's part of the way that the pattern is put together, so you can't really not sew them. If you don't want them to be contrasting, you can use the same fabric that you're using for your main project if you don't want it to be different. I do like the contrast though, because I think it's really pretty, and in this curved shape in the front you get these big pockets, and there's great shaping. There's nothing boxy here. Even when you look at the pattern pieces, you can already tell the shape that there is in the pattern. At the back there are princess seams. There's a center front piece and 2 side pieces with great waist shaping. Sleeves, you can hem it normally or choose one that has a cuff with a trim on it also. So there's quite a few options there. You can put a button there if you want to. I always like putting a button because I like being buttoned up sometimes. So this time I've made a second version, and with time I was able to film sewing. This is a type of pattern that has sewing that is so different to any other pattern you've ever made. Quite ingenious the way it's been put together, and the total result is amazing. The fit is so good. As you know, Sinclair Patterns has height files that you choose first, and then after you choose your height file according to what you are, then you choose your size. I sew a tall file with a size 16 that is drafted with a CD cup size already, so I tend to get a knee perfect fit every time I sew. My previous version of the Tuva Cardigan was made using a semi-structured sweater knit, so you need fabric that has some structure to it. If you choose knit fabric that's really drapey and lightweight, all the structure here is not going to hold up. Even though one of these pieces is partially interfaced, I think it's just not the right choice. So just find something a little bit more structured. I really like my previous version. Colors are not typically what I wear, but I still love them, and I did a navy trim with that one. I always knew I wanted to make another one. I knew I wanted to make the same version, the same length. I prefer this length than a longer version. This pattern was the one that won the votes for my Patreon sew along in February, I believe. So it's been a while since I've made this pattern, and I have already worn it out. I ended up choosing a one-of-a-kind type of fabric. I'm just so fortunate to have found it here, and it's not what you expect. It's actually a sweatshirting fabric, but it's not your typical sweatshirting fabric. So it doesn't have a fleece back, so it's not fuzzy at all. It has a really smooth side, and then on the other side it's got a print on it that looks like there's a lace overlay on it. So it looks like there's 2 layers of fabric there, but there actually isn't. It's just the prints, the way it's been done. It's so amazing. It's got the required stretch. It's medium weight, semi-structured, just perfect for it. I knew it was going to be really easy to work with and was going to look amazing. I had in mind a version that was going to be extremely comfortable. I mean, it is a sweatshirting after all, but was going to look a little bit more dressed up because of the lace print on it, and because of the shaping features. This doesn't look boxy. It looks so well put together once you're dressed. Sinclair Patterns is running a short Easter sale that started on the 16th and it ends on the 19th, so tomorrow. All the patterns on the site are 20% off. I've made so many of these patterns. I've always had amazing results. I'll leave you a playlist with all the Sinclair pattern makes I've got on the channel. They all have sewing, so there's always something extra for you to see in the sewing aspect. Just see it up close the way I sew it. As always, if you do do find the content I make helpful. It does really help if you use my affiliate link if you want to purchase patterns. I do receive a small commission from those sales and it doesn't cost you anything extra. So I will leave you my affiliate links down below also. But let's hop back to the Tuva Smart cardigan. So I have some really fun sewing to share with you. I know back then a lot of you did purchase the pattern. I hope you have sewn it. If you still haven't sewn it, I think this might give you a little hand putting it together. There are a few steps here that seem a bit counterintuitive. It's not what your brain is telling you to do, but you just have to trust the process and it's going to work out in the end. There are some sections where you don't put the right sides together, you put the wrong sides together. This is a summary that I have for you today. The full sew along is on Patreon, full of the details. So there are things that you are not going to see here, but with what I'm showing you here, you will be definitely able to put it together as a complement, of course, to the sewing instructions that you have that are fully detailed in color, that make it really easy to follow also. So we're focusing mainly on the neckline, this front area, the facings, the pockets, how this hem comes together, which is not the typical way. So let's see.
It's a shame to watch us fade away, but all the beautiful things we made are great.
These are the pattern pieces for the Tuva cardigan. The back pieces look pretty straightforward, like you might have seen before on other styles. That is the back. It is cut on the fold right there, and you have back princess seams. So that is the side back right there. These two pieces will make up the front. This is the main front piece. That is the shoulder, and it includes a bit of the neckline at the back. And this funny looking piece is a facing. It's not going to be a facing that's inside the garment. This will actually go on top there, and it'll be part of the way that a pocket comes together. This long piece here is called a collar trim, and this is going to be sewn all along this end right there and along the neckline also. This is a long sleeve. I have part of it tucked in under there so it fits my frame. And you can hem it normally, or you can cut it a little shorter and add on a cuff. The cuff is not a rectangle, it's curved as you can see there, and there's also going to be a trim between the sleeve and the cuff. There's also a separate piece where you will cut just interfacing to interface only partially this area here of the facing. It won't reach all the way to the bottom. This is the main front piece. The front piece has a shoulder seam and a neckline. So what we need to do is place the wrong sides together. I know it seems really wrong, but it's going to turn out perfect in the end. Personal preference, but I know that the result is much nicer with the sewing machine here. This is the little seam that we've just sewn. I've pressed the seam flat really neatly, and now what we're going to do is put it in this way on top of the table, wrong side of the fabric up. Remember, the light gray is my wrong side, and we're going to have this shape here. These are the shoulder seams, and this is the back neckline. That's how you would want to put it so you can follow along. And right here on this curve, there's a little mark, a little notch. You can see it in red there and right there. Those two marks are going to help us put the front piece together with the top of the back piece. Now we have just finished sewing the back princess seams, and this is how the top of the back looks like. It's got a little curve there. I made a little mark on the center back to help me align everything, and here we have a notch there on that curve and there on that curve. So take your back and put it like this. This is the hem, the bottom of the back piece. Put it over there like that. Both are wrong sides up like this, and now we can match the center back to that seam, this notch to that notch, that one to that one. Okay, this is how this looks, and you can sew this with the sewing machine or the serger. Because this is fully a curve and it can be done in one step, I think the serger will be okay. Okay, what we need to do is push the seam allowance toward this collar piece right there, and then edge stitch from the right side of the fabric. So on this side, look, this still looks like it's really wrong, but it's correct. All the way from the shoulder seam, I'm going to edge stitch. Again, I have my blind hem presser foot with the needle to the left, and it's going to be a huge help for all this edge stitching, so it's nice and neat. Now we can put this part of the cardigan to the side. I've got my facing piece on top of that ironing board, and on this center area is where you need to interface. This is knit interface, and it's a separate pattern piece. Here is the bottom of the center front of the piece. This won't reach the very bottom. I've drawn a faint red line that's 2 inches from the bottom edge. This is the hem allowance, so you don't want interfacing in the hem. It'll be bulky. You're meant to align it away from the seam allowance a little bit, so that you don't catch interfacing in the seam allowance. Don't worry about the color of your interfacing. This is going to be inside, it'll be hidden, no one's going to know what color you used. Okay, now we take our facing pieces that have this really long end and then this curve. This will be part of the pocket entrance, and remember we had just interfaced that side. So we're going to place both of these right sides together, same as we did with the main front. We're going to sew this tiny seam. Now in this case it'll look really correct because we are sewing it right sides together. Now this is the collar trim that will go all along the front. It is a pretty long piece and it was supposed to be cut with a fold right there. I'm using this contrast jersey that looks like leather. I had a tiny bit left and I had to add a center back seam there. So just pretend it isn't there. It'll be easier for me to match the center backs though. This piece will be folded onto itself lengthwise like that. And for a long while you won't have a notch. Here you can see that towards the bottom of the collar trim on both sides there's a series of notches. When you fold these wrong sides together you're going to lose them, but I'm going to mark them with pins so I can see where they are, and these are going to match the curve of the pocket entrance on the front facing piece. Okay, here we have the two front facing pieces. The little seam that we've just sewn is way up there, and you need to have them in this shape, so pointing outwards like that. That is going to be the curve of the pocket entrance right there, and along this curve is where you'll find notches around there, there, and those are going to match the collar trim. Okay, I have pinned the collar trim on basically from that first notch right there, around there, 1 to 1, so I'm not stretching the band to fit anything. But then when we have these 4 notches there, and there, the band gets a little shorter, and I'll show you that up closer. Where I have this pin on this side, I have a little notch there, red. That is the first one that you'll find on this curve. And then you'll find 4 of them. And so between these, you'll see that the band is slightly shorter. I really don't want to trust the pins at all for this curve. So what I do is I just stretch it like that with one finger. It's a small little section. Stretch it to fit. And as I've got the band stretched to fit the bottom, I'm going to hand baste this right on the edge, making sure the raw edges of the 3 layers here stay together. So you can see that when I've hand basted, I have already stretched the band to fit. So then I won't need to worry about that while I'm sewing. So you can see how it's a little bit curved in there. It's because it's longer than the band. But when I sew it, it'll all turn out fine. And I'll just keep hand basting this whole curve, and then I'll be able to sew it together with the serger without any pins, and it'll be super nice. But I had marked a dash that you see on the pattern that's a longer line, and marked that in green right there. I'm just going to poke a pin through it so I can see it from the other side right there. Another pin so I can see what it is. I don't want to mark anything on the right side of the fabric because this is really visible, so a pin is going to work. So from the edge, this is where the hip is going to be on the side. We need to push the band up like this, seam allowance down, and now we need to edge stitch from there up to that mark right there. I'm using my blind hem foot to do this edge stitching. It's going to be super neat. The seam allowance is going this way, and I know I have to stop right there where that pin is. You repeat the same on the other side. This is the bottom of the front facing. This is where the interface reaches. Remember we said it didn't go all the way down because that is the hem allowance. So the total hem allowance from the bottom edge is 2 inches, and I have actually drawn it with a friction pen there all the way across. And then there's a first fold that happens at 3/8, and I've also drawn it there. Look, when I'm sewing wovens, I like doing guide stitching on the sewing machine, and that helps me press really accurately. I really don't like eyeballing that or measuring it as I press because I burn my fingers and things. So what I've done is a type of guide stitch, but just by hand. And you can see on the right side it looks like that, and that is what I'm going to be using as a guide, so I can press this one and also this one. So I've given it a lot of steam and it's pressed really well, so that is the memory crease. Okay, here is the center front with the memory crease. Now what we need to do is fold it to the right side. Now I'm going to put a pin just to help me there in the center front. So I need to bring this hem over like this, right sides together, and pin it along that edge right there. Make sure the bottom is exactly on that fold there, and the same on the other center front. Put a pin there to help me, and just fold it up, right sides together there, including this little fold right there. I know this looks very strange, but it will make sense in a little bit. Okay, so we've brought back the main pieces. This is the back sewn to the front there on that neckline piece and shoulder seam. The back is rolled up over there, and this is the main front piece right there. This is wrong sides up, and now we need to take our facing piece and put it on top of this one, also wrong sides up. That's how it's going to look. Both pieces are wrong sides up, as you can see, and I'll show you how it looks at the bottom right here. That folded edge right there is going to match this raw edge right here. So that's where you're going to start aligning it all along the edge, up the curve, around there, and then all the way down to this side as well. Okay, this is going to be a super long seam. Here I have the bottom of the center. You can see the fold and the front piece at the back. I'll do it at 1/4 inch. And with my 1/4 inch presser foot, just a straight stitch. These pieces fit together perfectly. You don't need to stretch any of them to match the other, so it should be pretty simple. This is one of the center fronts, and remember we had pressed the hem allowance over to the right side, and that's how that looks. The one that has the hem allowance pressed up is the facing, and the main front is this one. So the way that you're going to wear this is like this. So you really don't want this side of the fabric to show, and to be able to do that, you understitch. I have my facing piece on my right hand and the main front piece on the left. I'm going to push the seam allowance towards the front piece, towards where you have the raw edge. Something to be aware of if your wrong side is dramatically different than the right side of the fabric. For all my understitching, I always use the same presser foot, move the needle to the left, and it's really neat. That's how the understitching looks. Now, if you want to at this point, you can flip this. Just flip it, and this is how this is going to work. This front piece is going to be inside there, and it will reach that crease. And then the hem was going to cover it like that, and that is how the center front is going to be finished. And then at the very last stages we will sew the hem, but for now this edge is okay. This edge is still open like this, and this is going to go on the side seams later. Okay, at this point we can sew the side seams. So what you need to do is put your cardigan on the table wrong sides out. You can see all this wrong area, the light gray fabric, and we are going to align the side seams, but there's something that's going to happen on the side seam. If you push this facing away, take it away, you're going to notice that the front is shorter than the back. It's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be 2 inches shorter, which is the hem allowance of the back. Don't think it's a mistake, that you've done something wrong. It's supposed to be like that. Remember, we had this facing extended that way, and we had these right sides together, the front and the back. We need to get the facing piece in between them both. So at that seam you have there, that nice clean seam, just flip it under, and that will bring the facing piece in between these two layers. Remember, we had done that memory crease on that facing. Just extend it, just ignore it. Align this with the back. They should have the same length right there, the facing with the back piece. But the front here is going to be shorter, and it's going to reach that first little memory crease right there. That's how the side seam is going to be sewn. Okay, here is a side seam pinned. Now I have a completed armhole, and that means I can sew in my sleeve later. So it starts there, and then as it goes to the bottom, you can see that the front reaches that crease. It's 2 inches shorter than the bottom edge, but then the facing and the back that are together there are the same length. So let's just go ahead and serge this one. After sewing this one, we can repeat on the other side. Okay, here we are looking at the jacket. This is the hem, so all the jacket is hanging off the table. This is the front facing where we'd already done that memory crease, but that doesn't exist on the back piece that we've just sewn on with the side seams. I did the same thing I did with the facing. I drew my hem allowances and I just did some hand sewing, and I'm gonna go ahead to the iron and crease this. And now this will include the front one that we'd already done. This front is shorter. It's gonna just rest against that fold like this, and then the hem will be continuous like that. Here I've finished working on my hem. I have it hand basted. I'm going to be using a twin needle, and I'm going to be sewing from this side, from the right side of the fabric. It is a straight stitch, and because there are many layers here in some areas, I'm going to be maybe making my stitch length a little longer. It'll be 3.5 in general. After sewing that hem, I gave it a good press, nice steam. It's laying super flat. And now the next part is fixing this facing down because it's still open, it's still loose. If I flip this, you'll see the white interfacing under there. So I've placed it on my ironing board. I've got one shoulder seam here, and up to the center back, it's going to reach my ironing board. As it's flat like this right now, I'm going to pin it down all along there. Remember, we had top stitched the collar trim only up to a certain point. Put a yellow pin there. We had top stitch from there to there. Now we're going to pick up and start from where we'd stopped, and we're going to edge stitch through all the layers all around this to the other side as well, and that is going to fix the facing in place. Here you can see where we had top stitched previously from here to the side seam. So I've started hand sewing right there. I am hand basting, and I'm basting right inside that seam. I'm going to be using the same type of presser foot so I can sew on the edge, so when I sew it won't catch the hand basting right there. I can see exactly where I have to stop because that's where I top stitched previously. So what happened here is that we started there through all the layers, and this creates a pocket opening right there. All of this is the pocket, it's quite large. This is how the Tuva cardigan is looking so far. This is the wrong side. So the wrong side of the fabric will go right up to the edge, but with understitching it'll stay inside. Here you can see that seam that we've just done. Mine is in a color that matches the wrong side of my fabric, and that is holding that facing down right there. This is how it looks on the top. Also, you can see that seam there that is holding the facing down. This is my new Tuva cardigan. From the wrong side in there, you can definitely tell it is a sweatshirting material, but it is the type that is smooth on the inside. It's not the ones that are meant to keep you extra warm, not fleece packed at all. If it had been fleece packed, I wouldn't have made this project with it. Because of the way this is constructed, there is a slight chance if you move that the wrong side will be seen there. And even though the understitching keeps it inside, for the most part, I definitely would not like anything fleece packed and fuzzy there showing when you open up your jacket or the wind blows. I would have really disliked that. So it looks really neat. I'm happy with that. And I've used a contrast trim. This is a lightweight leather look jersey that I've used, and I think it looks really pretty. It really highlights the curve and the design line of the cardigan or blazer. I look at this more like a blazer actually, although it could be a cardigan, I don't know. So when I knit one, I see it like a cardigan. It's all got to do with fabric choice, you know? And the pocket bag is so nice, quite large. Not that I'll ever put anything in there, and I keep saying that. I like pockets for aesthetics or for design features. I think these are amazing pockets, but I never view them as functional because even if I put a small thing in there, it's going to create bulk. It's going to make the garment lie towards one side a little more because of the weight. I just think items in pockets in garments just don't look very nice at all. Just my opinion, totally my opinion. I love my handbags. That's where I put my things. But the pocket is amazing. Maybe I'd put a tissue in there or something very, very small. I have a single button. I always like that, although it is totally optional. And the way the neckline is finished here is so neat. It's top stitched down, so there's nothing coming out, no raw areas seen. I've chosen the sleeve option that has the cuff with the trim. This section is really well explained in the instructions. There are also some steps here that are not what you would expect, but you'll be able to do it for sure. Princess seams on the back that I've top stitched. Very nice shaping, twin needle hem. On the center front, the hem does reach the edge, so I was really careful to be the neatest I could with that, and with my understitching, hand basting that hem so it would turn out super smooth. You know, there is a curve here on the back a little bit, so I think hand basting is the way to go for you to be able to control that fabric on the curve and have the best result you can. I love it. So beautiful. Let me show you how this looks on casually. Linen pants, just a top underneath. This is my newest version of the Tuva Smart cardigan from Sinclair Patterns. It's a size 16 with a toe file. This is a really interesting sweatshirting material. I have the shorter length option here. There is a longer one and a long sleeve with a cuff. You'll see the details up closer, of course. I really love the fit and the look with these red linen pants. Up closer, you can see the curved seams on the front, and I've used a black contrast trim for this. I love how it looks. The button is optional, but I always sew it in there. And you can see that there is a lace print on this sweatshirting. It makes it look like there's an overlay on the fabric, but there isn't. Here you can see my long sleeves with the cuff that also has the same type of trim as on the front. If you're looking for a more simple version, you can just cut the sleeve a little bit longer and just hem it normally. The back shaping is amazing. There are princess seams there, so the fit is really outstanding here. I love how this feels on. It feels so comfortable, but the shaping makes it look like you're more put together than you really feel. So we're not wearing anything boxy or oversized here. I think the fit is really good, and that just elevates any look, whether you're wearing this over a dress more formally or just over some linen pants like here. I've also got a few more casual shots of me wearing this to church one day, just with a black dress, some basic heels, a very basic outfit, but I feel really put together, and I think the blazer goes a long way. It just can work for anything. Have a look at it, styled with a dress and little heels. Love the look as well. If you didn't get this pattern back when it was released, maybe you want to grab it now. It's amazing. It's so nice. I know I definitely want to make it again. I really felt great when I've worn it, and I feel like I'm cheating because I feel so comfortable, but I feel so put together at the same time. So I think that's great. Remember, all the patterns are 20% off for this short little Easter sale that ends the 19th tomorrow. So there's still a few hours for you to have a look and get some patterns for a little bit less if you want to. Of course, my affiliate link is down below if you'd like to use it. That's all from me today. I think the next video you will see here on the channel has some woven sewing, so keep your eyes open for that one. See you soon. Bye and happy sewing.